Are there people you know accepting of different gender identities?
Many people I know are very accepting of different gender identities. I moved here with people who were very genderqueer positive and just queer positive in general.
Portland is a very queer and progressive city, especially with sexuality. So you see a lot of like open relationships, and you see a lot of people experimenting with the types of relationships that they want.
Even like at my school, the professors and the department is very cool. And there's this one person in my program who they asked them what their pronouns are. Like, I feel like that's pretty awesome for like, professors to know that and be aware of that.
I think most people are comfortable with their sexuality, whether you're gay or straight or crooked or backwards. I think most people are pretty cool with it. Pretty acceptable now to be whatever you want to be.
No, not as much as they should be. I hang out with a lot of men, and I think it's harder for men, just in my circles at least. In my experience, in any category, men are not generally comfortable with the unknown.
Have things changed, like in the time that you guys have been growing up? Have things become any different for gay people?
I think so, yeah. With acceptance, a lot more people are starting to come out and say, hey, this is what we do, and we're proud of it. We're not embarrassed by it. Especially as of, it was like 20 years ago, like when, or however long ago, like when my grandpa was probably in high school, if somebody were to be gay or something like that, it was very likely that they were hazed on and possibly got their ass beat and stuff like that, which nowadays, people, they really don't care, People are just trying to survive. Nobody cares about what anybody else is doing anymore. I mean, certain people do, people that want to be in everybody's business do, but, like me personally, and I'm pretty sure I can speak for Chris as well, I don't care. I don't care what you do. What you do behind your closed doors is what you do. That's none of my business, and I'm not going to judge you for it, regardless of what you sleep with or who you sleep with.
I think our generation has a wider spectrum of acceptance and tolerance, namely through technology. That plays a big part because we're so advanced in technology. We're able to share more, read more, see things quicker.
I think there's only a handful of cities in the United States that seem to me particularly open-minded, or that most people who are gay or transgender feel safe expressing themselves in public.
In most parts of Florida back home, it feels dangerous to be gay and to be out still. Walking down the street hand in hand with your significant other who's the same gender as you can be a dangerous situation. I've had people yell at me, threaten me, tell me that God loves me.
Generally, it's easier for me walking down the street now. I mean, I still have people throw expletives at me, particularly sexuality-based ones. I've been called a fag and a dyke and all those things in every permutation of body that I've had.
I'm a cisgendered female who is super femme, so I don't really have a lived experience of having to explain or justify my gender to somebody because I present in a way that is pretty easy to digest for most people, straight or queer.
I've always been bisexual and I'll never choose a team, and I just think that it's just because I honestly just don't think it makes a difference. I just don't. I'm really 50-50. I think inside I have like a strong male personality and female personality, and I think that it just doesn't matter to me. Like, I think that everybody has that in them. It's just that not everybody's like, into exploring it or needs to or whatever.
My identity's kind of complicated, but I identify as transgender, female to male transgender. I identify as transmasculine, genderqueer, sort of in between gender identities. My sexuality, I identify as queer, pansexual. I think it's kind of, for me, it's about adding as many labels on as possible as opposed to trying to restrict it to something singular.
Well, yeah, I feel like in a lot of relationships, there's kind of, in the queer community, there is this like kind of like internal slot system where you're kind of either a femme or you're a butch. And, maybe there's a little wiggle room. Maybe you're an andro. But being, I guess, usually femmes and butches get together because it's like a male role and a female role.
Gender roles in queer relationships really depends where you're at, like location-wise, right? In Portland, you know, there's a running joke that like Portland's full of bottoms, right? Portland is a town of bottoms.
One way that gender roles impact gay men, I think, are the idea of whether somebody is feminine or masculine. And traditionally, I think that a masculine gay man is expected to be attracted to a feminine gay man. But what I found to be true is that most gay men are attracted to masculine men because they're really most of them are attracted a lot to straight men too. And the presentation of a straight and masculine man.
Generally, people do settle into some kind of like role, but it's hard to say like, you know, this person's more male or this person's more like female or whatever.
I think for a certain segment of gay men, there's a real animosity toward like femme behavior for other men, which is all just kind of internalized homophobia. And I have this same like internalized homophobia. Am I acting too gay? Which is like totally bullshit.
It was worse before I started transitioning, I think, because I was somebody who appeared more female than I do now. I was misgendered like pretty much all the time. I was pretty much always called she or ma'am or that kind of thing. A lot of people, when I've expressed concern about that or expressed anxiety about it, have been like, well, why don't you dress more masculine, or like, why don't you try to be more manly or butch or whatever. And that's the thing that I'm not willing to change. I appreciate being androgynous. I like being in a liminal space, like kind of in between genders. So it's just kind of something that I have to put up with on the day-to-day.
For some reason, the gay movement has this white male upper middle class face, and I mean, I recognize it because it's kind of my own.
There's always been this like contention between essentially leadership in the gay movement, which are predominantly white gay men, and what kind of outcome that has when white gay men, even if they're gay, still have a lot of privilege for other reasons, and it still gets like smattered all over the place, but there's not really accountability to it or the acknowledgement of it because the focus is, but I'm a gay.
So someone came up to me the other day, a guy in my program. He was saying, you're black, you're a woman, and you're gay. Like, man. And I was like, I mean, I was like, yes, I am all of those things. Like, you're totally right, I am. And I think that the difference maybe for me is just that it gives me something else to, I don't know how to say it, like second guess, or if something happens, I'm like, is that because I'm a woman? Is it because I'm black? Is it because I'm gay? Like, it just gives me another like thing to question.
So with each of those layers, every moniker you put on someone comes loaded. It comes with a history behind it. If you are a straight person of color, you still have the entire history of whatever your background is behind you. And for people like me who have a very jumbled experience that comes with a lot more. I think being queer and being black, they come with two very separate yet intertwined histories. It's two very different kinds of hurt when I feel like either of those are threatened.
I think particularly for queer people of color, one of the biggest shared experiences that I feel like I've heard from my peers and from the broader community, and that I could say for myself as well, is that it's lonely.
I think it's easier to be a queer person who is white than a person of color who is straight. I think it's easier because I think what's more ingrained in our society is race. And I think that's a bigger issue than queer, because I think you can read it on someone's skin, like what the color of their skin is. And to be gay isn't necessarily something you can read right off the bat.
I really think it's unfortunate for black dudes who tend to be homophobic or just tend to call themselves hating gay people. It's because that's just like another level of ignorance. It's kind of like where we're at right now, where like you know, people fighting for gay rights. It's almost like how black people were fighting for civil rights in like the 50s and 60s. But a lot of people that are fighting for gay rights are also fighting like other black people in black churches that are saying that that's like wrong. But yet there's plenty of black churches where like a minister of music or an usher or whoever is gay in the closet, you know?
Within different cultures, there's a lot of different struggles that a queer person would have, you know, based on existing gender issues within that subculture. So it's just another thing to deal with. And that is unfortunate, and the interlocking hierarchies of oppression keeping us all down.
There's this idea that there's more homophobia in communities of color, but I actually don't feel like that's true at all. I actually feel like it's just not talked about in the same way that it's talked about in white communities. It's actually almost this thing that everyone understands and holds as like a thing, and it's fine and it's okay, but it's not like this big event that people have to do, like coming out and being gay. It's actually more of just like, that's part of who so-and-so is, okay?
There's gay celebrities now and shit, so it's like, it's okay. It's kind of cool to be gay. I'm not gonna go that route, but it's like kind of cool to be gay for some people now, like, so that's their thing, like, I don't know. It used to be like, damn, he's gay, that's like a big thing. Now it's like, oh, he's gay, cool, sick.
I love you, Frank Ocean. And not just because you're a beautiful human being, but because you give the opportunity to have a really good conversation. It's hip-hop, you know, and gay and faggot gets thrown around with such a negative connotation sometimes that, like, people think that, like, hip-hop hates them. And to have him there opens up this area for conversation for people to be like, you know, I'm forced into it, you know, like, let's talk about it, because we are a progressive generation and we want different things and we want to be better, you know, than that, you know, and we want to be accepted and we want to be loved. I want to be loved. Do you want to be loved? Because I want to be loved, no matter who I am.